This episode is sponsored by the Indiana Association of Realtors.
Next order of business is roll call members. Please indicate your presence when the machine is open. If all the members voted, Tyler, roll.
Hey, we're back with Sessions, and it is the end of the second full week, the end of the actual third week, though, but you'll recall we only had like 2 days in the first week. I think that's an important point. It's critical information for those of you listening. And it's been an interesting 2.5 weeks, I think. Lots going on and also not a lot going on at the same time. It's a kind of wild change of events. Earl, what have you been seeing over the course of the last 2.5 weeks? First of all, actually, you know what? It's really good to see you. We're back. We're back together every day.
Yes, we are.
I mean, it's just it's really satisfactory.
It makes my life so much better to know that 2025 once again I get to hang out with Blake the Man Johnson.
Yeah, and our offices are next to each other.
Wait,
now.
I'm sorry, Blake Lemonade Johnson.
Yeah,
I
Blake
forgot
Lemonade
about the
Stand
Lemonade
Johnson.
Stand
Yeah.
Johnson. Yeah.
Well, so our offices are now next to each other too.
Correct.
So the universe just continues to draw us closer and closer together.
It wants the dynamic duo to be together.
It's true. And somehow those offices are as far away from everything as possible. I mean, we're practically in the top of the dome at the State House.
Might have been on purpose. So
yeah.
Keep us together, but away from everyone else.
Yeah, smart. So
Yeah,
what are you saying?
I hit the
2.5
table.
weeks. It's all right. We'll get through it. We won't edit it out. We'll keep it there.
We'll
Yeah.
keep that in.
2.5 weeks in. What are you seeing?
You know, it's been an interesting beginning. This session is actually starting with a different kind of schedule than we normally do, as you know. So not as much session time up front, really more focused on committees. And we're moving and grooving. I mean, people are working on trying to get their bills heard or getting their bills heard. Committee have been started scheduling hearing of bills. I'm on Ways and Means, so we've been listening to universities and different agencies talk about their budget needs and what they've done and what they're going to do. So it's a lot of action and a lot of going on. We are still in the super minority as Democrats, but you know what? We've been there for a while, so we know how to deal with it.
Keep on trucking.
Yeah,
Keep on trucking.
but you know what? I know, and I'm sure you're in the same boat. I'm having conversations with some of our chairpersons that are interested in hearing bills that are authored. So I think as Democrats, we continue to fight, we continue to push, even in the super minority, to get things done, get bills heard, get good legislation passed.
It's interesting, right? So you talk about the new schedule, and I want to kind of go back to that for a second. So essentially what's happening this year that's different than last year, or the last,
However long.
Yeah, many sessions, is that we've kind of front-loaded committee time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So typically, we're meeting a couple times a week in the full chamber, but that is not the case. We're essentially meeting. This week we met just one day in the actual full chamber. Everything else is committee. So in your experience, you're actually fairly busy because of Ways and Means, because you guys are already starting right into it. Mm-hmm. I serve on public policy, local government, rules, and I'm probably missing a few others there, and I hit the table now that time. But my schedule's actually been very, very light. I've only had one committee hearing so far since we started.
I can give you some of my work.
I know, yeah. Listen, you keep me busy. But so it's been a slower start for me, an obviously kind of quick start for you. But to your point, things are moving along, and this is a time when folks are really hustling their bills, right? Because you think session goes through April. You got plenty of time, but you really don't, because we're broken into halves, and this first half will fly by.
Yeah, it is. And what's happening also is you author bills, and then you have to get co-authors. So besides us reaching out for people to be co-authors, actually getting people to ask us about being co-authors, because even as Democrats, Republicans want us on some of their bills. So that's always good to be engaged in the process. It really is going to be an interesting session. Budget year is always interesting because it's budget year.
Yeah.
And so we're figuring out how we're going to spend money over the next 2 years and who gets what and whom unfortunately won't get anything. And then I know I'm on, and we're going to talk more about this, and we have an upcoming show with the chairperson of Roads and Transportation. Roads is going to get a lot of attention this year, and then we're also going to talk to our ranking minority member for health in the House. That's going to get a lot of attention. So we have some major issues we need to deal with. And when I say deal with them, I don't just mean figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to pay for them.
Yeah.
That's going to be spend a lot of time figuring that out. And it's probably going to mean some changes in the way some of the things work in the state.
Since we were last all together here on this glorious podcast, one of the other things that happens in these first few weeks is on day one, both the minority leader, Phil Giaquinta, previous guest of the show, and the majority leader, Matt Lehman, have an opportunity to provide some comments on the House floor. And one of the things that Phil said on the floor that I really liked, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not exactly how the line was about, our work should be about making life better for Hoosiers. Like everything we should do should just come down to that one question.
Right.
Does this make life better or worse for Hoosier families? And that's a kind of clarity that I think the legislature should really operate under. And you mentioned it, right? We're going to see a budget year. Road funding and healthcare I think are the top three things that are happening this session.
Property taxes is
another, and you've also got a brand new governor in the State House as well. So we'll kind of be, I think, in some way reacting and bumping against his thinking. If you've been reading the news, there are a couple weird bills out there though that we've seen that have kind of gotten some attention. I suspect both in Northwest Indiana and Indianapolis, where I'm from. One of those I just saw last night, which is essentially a secession bill, not for Indiana to secede from the Union, but for folks in Illinois, for counties to be able to secede from Illinois to join the state of Indiana, thus changing the boundaries of the state. I just want to know your thoughts, Earl.
I have not had a chance to read up to gain all the knowledge, but I don't know where that came from. I would be curious to know what that idea is. I have not, and if you have, let me know. Yeah. I have not heard a reaction from the great state of Illinois as to what they think about that. Yeah. Hopefully they're not laughing. But I'm not sure what to do with that one.
It's I guess it kind of is coming from the fact that some of these more rural counties in Illinois. So Illinois is sort of the opposite of Indiana, right?
Right, we are.
Democrat-controlled state. And so you've got some counties along the southeast side of the state that are not happy with their higher taxes and also that they're democratically controlled, and they're looking for an out. And some of these counties have actually voted to secede already, but that doesn't.
Oh, it's gone that far.
Yeah. So
I need to
now, what ends up having to happen though is the Illinois legislature would have to pass a similar law. To enter into this commission to redraw the lines, which I can't imagine Illinois, the legislature, regardless of party, is willing to give up
Why would
land,
you give up as a
right?
State land?
But and this bill is on our
That's
side.
like
It's
inviting somebody
authored
to take part of your house.
Authored by the Speaker of the House. This is the Speaker's bill. So, it's a priority. It's a priority bill. Now, I would say, with all due respect to the Speaker, that doesn't pass the test for me on does this make life better or worse for Hoosier families. I think most Hoosier families are going to think this is like a sketch from SNL, but still, nonetheless, that's one of the bills that's out there. So we'll see what happens. A couple others. What other bills have come out that are kind of getting some attention?
Well, there's one that's related to public education, which your home city of Indianapolis and then one of the cities I represent, Gary, are two big parts of this, which has to do with changing schools that are public ed to charters. And it has to do with the amount of percentage of students that live in there that actually go to the public school system versus don't. And so when you hit that 50% threshold, you can be taken over and become a charter. So there are 5 school districts that are close to that number, IPS being one of them, the Gary school system being another one. That's causing a lot of stress. I can tell you actually we have some people from Gary that have come down to meet with the author and have some conversation with him. So we've been having a lot of conversations. There's some meetings and different things going on to talk about this. One thing which I don't know the pure answer to yet is of the 5 school districts, 2 of them are represented by Democrats, and then 3 of them are represented by Republicans. So need to have some conversation with our Republican friends to see where they live with this, because I can't see them being overly enthused about their school districts being taken over. Right now.
This is the bill. I think the way some of the press has talked about is dissolving public schools, right?
Yeah, really.
It is privatizing the entire swath of schools in a given county. And it's tough, right? I have some great charter schools in my district, and I think somewhere between 55 and 60% of the kids in my district are in a charter, private, or parochial school. And so, I'm constantly, working with both sides on this issue to try to find a resolution. This one seems just so drastic.
It does.
And honestly, it's being touted as another step in the kind of towards choice. But I think this is like one of the most anti-choice things you could pass, because now you're saying, okay, so there's this other model, right? And charters, can play a role in innovative, pedagogy and instruction and providing kind of different models. But now you're saying the other choice of a traditional public school that is locally governed and controlled by elected officials.
Elected local officials.
That choice is no longer on the table.
Right.
And so I think this is almost like a kind of antithetical to the rest of the arguments that have been made by Republicans around the issue of educational choice.
Right.
And so, the point I don't want to lose is that this is also saying that we don't care about the local government layer.
Correct.
A government layer that is much closer to the people than the state house is, obviously, and saying to them that, those elections don't matter and the will of those voters don't matter. It's a very, very dangerous path to go down.
And I'll tell you something else that has come up in conversations that I've been a part of is when you talk about because I worked in public education, traditional public ed school district for 20 years. And when you talk about that type of school district, they have to take care of everything with the kid. Now, that's a great thing. So if the kid needs additional helps, the kid needs additional supports, they're taken care of. What's happened, and I don't know if I don't see a change in this, is when you talk about other type, charter, private, whatever, they don't have to. So what happens to those kids? Are we having a group of kids that will fall through the cracks? Sorry, we can't help you, we can't service you. Or even if it's behavioral, where, you've gotten into too much trouble, you're out. What happens to those kids? And I think that's part of what I know people I've had conversation with are asking that question and have a big concern. We have to have something in place to make sure, and I believe it's part of our Constitution, we're supposed to educate all kids.
Yeah.
And so what will this mean to that future? So there's a lot of conversation. Hopefully this is one of those bills that pops up, gets some attention, and then
goes away.
Nosedives.
Yeah, there's a Forbes article, not a bastion of liberal ideology by any stretch of the imagination, that kind of takes a shot at this bill. And one of the points it makes is that, oftentimes in these districts, these are some of the hardest schools to run, right? I mean, there's trauma, poverty, all these things that are like kind of driving some of these lower academic outcomes and whatnot. And what it says is like you're going to have to find operators, private operators, companies, to run these schools if they're then deemed charters, and you're going to have to pay top dollar to those companies to run those schools. And one of the powers that this board would have would be in charge of this kind of network of charters is the power as unelected folks to raise taxes on the community. So imagine unelected bureaucrats raising taxes
not going to go
on behalf of neighbors. Yeah, I'm with you. I hope this is going nowhere. Maybe it's a negotiating tactic. I don't know, but it's definitely a bill that is bad. And the last thing I'll say on it, then we can move on, is just that other states around the country have tried to make a move like this, and those bills have not been able to get through. In the one place where this model exists, I think it's New Orleans, they're now going back to also having a traditional public school system because it hasn't worked for them either. So I know we like to be on the leading edge of both good ideas and bad.
Not if the cliff is close.
It seems like a bad one.
Well, I'm going to add one more
Yeah,
thing,
go ahead.
if we can, and then you can dive in where you're going. You hit on something which I hope, and if I'm a betting man, think is that this is a little bit of a play to get some conversation going in some sort of direction. So I don't know how serious it is about getting this passed, or is it about bringing people to the table to talk about some other change. So we'll see how it plays out.
Well, that's a good kind of
And it's a
behind
strategy
the
that
scenes
happens.
thing, right? That's a strategy, right? You throw up a bill, right, and in an attempt to have a deeper conversation and bring folks your way, and it's it happens on both sides. We do bills that are sort of a message bill at times, or a warning shot, if you will. Now, granted, ours are. The warning is a little more faint in the super minority, but still nonetheless. And folks in different industries and associations will still see that and say, okay, well, we better pay attention. So, we'll see what happens. This one, we will check back in a little while and kind of see where this bill has fallen. And maybe we'll get one of our education folks in here to talk about it too.
I think that'll be great, and hopefully we'll have good news by then.
What are you working on this session?
So I have multiple things, and as you talked about, having some conversation with different chair people, getting some supports. One of the things that I'm focused on, so as you know, I'm the chair of the Indiana Black Legislative Caucus, and our focus for 2025 is healthcare, both mental and physical healthcare. So we had a press conference. Everyone gets to provide a piece of legislation for the agenda that we're highlighting. Mine is House Bill 1068. It has to do with repayment of medical school loans. As you know, we have a huge issue with the shortage of physicians in Indiana. And I knew we had counties that did not have OBGYNs, but actually recently learned half of our 92 counties no OBGYN. So we wonder why we have maternal health issues and why mothers
some of the worst in the country.
Why mothers having, being pregnant is not always the easiest process to go through. So people come out of medical school owing about $205,000. So it's a $200,000 payoff focused on, our needs of general OBGYNs. And you commit to 10 years staying in Indiana, and it breaks the state up by thirds, so 7 northern, 7 central, 7 southern. You commit to 10 years. By the end of that 10 years, you will have received $200,000, which pretty much pays off your $205,000 or so loan. It is prorated. So if something happens and you get some big offer somewhere, you move because of family, whatever your reason, you just want to live somewhere else, it is prorated. So if you have stayed 5 years, you would have earned $100,000. So it's aimed at keeping and bringing in physicians to the state of Indiana, hopefully to increase that and put us in a much better situation when it comes to health care.
Good deal.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I'm working on.
You're a smart guy. You got a future in this.
I got some connections to this.
Stick around for a while.
I'll see what I can do about that.
Okay.
If I can tell you one other one,
Sure.
and I will share with you. I actually had a conversation today. I was interviewed about this bill. So we had the realtors on. Wait, did I say it right?
Realtors.
Realtors. Sorry.
Yes.
Mark's going to be mad at me when he watches this.
It's okay.
The realtor.
He's not going to watch it.
He only watched the show he was on.
That's the way I do it too.
Yes. Wait, you're on every show.
Exactly.
There you go. So we talked about, we have these investor big money groups that are coming in, and they're doing this all over the country. They're buying up houses. And it's causing financial stress for people because they can come in. Most of us have to get a mortgage. They can come in and say, hey, Blake, I want to buy your house. I know it's worth this much, but I'm going to give you an additional $20,000. You don't have to do anything. Just pick a date. You pack your stuff. You move out. No inspections, nothing. Most people can't compete with that. So they're coming in. That's jacking up the prices of houses. That's making it more expensive for everyone, whether you're trying to buy or you're renting. If they decide to rent them or they flip them, they're jacking up the prices. It's impacting the rest of neighborhoods, because you're raising up the AV on them. It's making it also harder for especially first-time buyers to get into house. And we know buying a house is connected to generational wealth. It's connected to the American dream. It's a good foundation. Where you live affects how you live. And so it does a couple of things where they have to sell off. So they have a process over 10 years. They sell off a percentage of those houses because we want to get people who are actually living there. And again, these are people who usually and there was actually a study done on this. Most of them live out of the state. They're not even local. So it's a buy down. There are some penalties in place. Those penalties, the funds that come from that, go into a fund that house purchasers can apply for to get money for a down payment. So just working to help people live the American dream, get big money out of houses, get them out of neighborhoods. They focus a lot of times on lower income areas because, of course, they know that they're lower income houses. They can buy those easier and then raise up the price. And one of the things, last thing I'm going to say on this because there's more, but last thing I'm going to say is one of the things that really bothers me is if you have a neighborhood and a big chunk of it has gone down that path and the property values costs have gone up, say you have a couple or if one of them, a senior couple, one of them is no longer alive and it's only one of them, they've lived in a house 40 years. The house is paid off. The only thing they have is property taxes and insurance, of course, and all the utilities. But their property tax costs go up. They're on a fixed income.
Right. It
would be a shame for that family or that single person that's left from that couple to then have to give up their house, which they've lived in and paid off over all those years.
Yeah, happening over and over and over again, too, where families are losing those homes. And we talked about on that episode with Mark is, this is sometimes the only pathway to wealth families will have is that asset. Mm-hmm. Being able to hand it down to your kid or grandkid and continue that on. So I'm glad you're in the mix and all that.
Yeah, working
on my side.
What you got going on?
Yeah, so a couple things I'm excited about. I've as long as I've been in the legislature, been working on reckless driving, pedestrian safety, all of that. And so
is that because you're a reckless driver?
No, it's just you see it too much though. I tell you, I find myself using choice words on the roads a lot here. But no, I've got, 2 bills on that again. The vulnerable road users bill, which deals with if someone's committing a moving violation and it results in the serious bodily injury or death a what we would call a vulnerable user. So that could be a tow truck driver, a first responder, a pedestrian, a cyclist, that they would automatically lose their license in the state of Indiana. I think continues to be the right thing to do. You hear story after story of some of these folks. The most, I think the image that comes to most people's minds is an officer on the side of the street on the interstate or whatnot doing a traffic stop. The officer gets struck and killed. Construction worker, same thing.
Workers, yes.
And so we're trying to find a way to hold people accountable for behaviors that are dangerous and hopefully be a deterrent to those activities as well. The other bill is one that I've filed for the last several years as well, which is on the ability to pilot a program in school zones utilizing cameras to slow speeding vehicles. I think, and I always mention Washington Street in my district where there's like 4 school zones between downtown and 465. And that corridor is one of the most dangerous in the state, definitely the most dangerous in the city. And we're seeing pedestrian strikes, cyclists, kids being hit, all of that all the time. And so need to do something about that. And I think a pilot program similar to the great work happening on some of our highways around construction workers is another way to thread that needle. But then the other thing I'm really excited about, it's a new bill for me, is around early child education. So,
nice. Any reason why you care about early child education?
I have greater insight into it than I have in the past, for sure. But one of the things we've heard from the majority is that they are not right now planning to fully fund early child education pre-K. And when I say pre-K, I'm talking about 3 and 4 year olds. And instead say that we need to find other ways to thread that needle. And so what my bill does is it provides an opportunity for local governments to do a referendum to cover the cost of 3 and 4 year olds to have universal access to pre-K in those communities. And so, I think there's some balance here, right? I mean, property taxes and all that, it's tough, but if a community wanted to take that step, I think that tool should be in the toolbox for them to be able to fund early child education. And it's an economic driver thing too, right? I mean, too many families, like the cost of early child education is too high. And so you are making a choice, right? Either I can go back to work and it'll be at a loss for us, or one of us will stay home and we'll operate that way. And so this is I think one mechanism we could use to help communities start to take that seriously, get kids started on a strong educational path early on, provide parents the opportunity to continue contributing to the workforce. I think it's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win on the issue. So
I don't know if you put enough wins in there.
I think there's more to come.
There's more to come.
I think
Well,
we just gotta keep going.
You hit on something as someone who I mentioned earlier worked in public ed. We hear about the importance of education at a young age. Kids can learn. Babies can learn at a young age. And so I think you're going down the right path of starting to help them be able to do that. So
I'm working. So my kid this morning literally headbutt me, looked me in the eyes, reared his head back, headbutt me in the nose as hard as he possibly could. And I'm like, how quickly can I get you into school? Because we need to fix this as quickly as possible.
Okay, so here's my question. After he headbutt you, did he laugh or did he give you a look like, do something?
So, they say, I've been reading a lot because he's a little boy and he's got he's rambunctious.
He's all boy.
And he's 16 months now, and they say don't react, right? When they do something like that, because he'll on occasion smack me around a little bit, and you're not supposed to react. You're supposed to just kind of let it roll and kind of... We don't hit daddy, we gentle touch and you kind of model. But I reacted. It was 6:30 in the morning. And so I'm like, he hits me. I'm like, what are you doing, Len? And then he laughed. Then he's loving it. So there's no choice in that matter. You're just kind of.
All right. Tell the truth. Are you afraid of your son?
I'm not afraid of him, but he's tough. and their little bodies are very strong.
And they're agile.
Yeah. I mean,
I hear they bounce.
He's tested that theory a little bit. So yeah, but so it's been a wild adventure so far. But I'm here. We're still recording. It's great.
We're good. I'm glad you showed up and you don't have a broken nose.
What do people need to know? As we we're running out of time here on this first episode here since session started. What else is out there? What do people need to realize about the way this process is going to work and how they can be involved?
Well, I'm going to go down the path first of the be involved is people can be involved now. Take a look. If you go to our website, you can see everything about every bill. You can see who's authoring it. You can see the language. You can see the fiscal. You can see the committee that it's been assigned to. You can see if it's been assigned a hearing date yet. And get involved. Look at those bills. Some of them you want to call the chairperson, call members of the committee, and talk about how great it is. Some of them talk about how bad it is, because not everything that's filed, really fits the good realm. And when it comes to a bill being heard in committee, please show up. And I know, you live here, so your district is close, Mine is a little further away, so depending on where you are, it might be a little bit of a drive. But get engaged. This is the budget year, so what we're going to be doing financially for the next couple of years, we're deciding on that. How money is going to be spent, where it's going to be spent on. We know we have some hot issues we're going to be dealing with, as we've touched on a little bit here so far. We talked about transportation. That's going to be something we're going to focus on a lot. Healthcare, we know that's going to be a big part of the conversation. How do we make Hoosiers better? We also know that property taxes, we've been working on that for a while. We're going to be putting some more attention into property taxes to figure out how to not hurt people with high property taxes, but also remember what property taxes go to in terms of funding police and fire and education, and not hurt them by what we do. So a lot of action, I think, and a lot of big issues are going to be discussed this year.
And we'll be here with you all through it all.
Through it all.
No doubt about it. We'll be back here chatting across this table, maybe a different one, and we'll kind of keep you up to date here. And also reach out to us. Let us know your questions. Let us know if you want someone to come on that we haven't had on yet, although the list is growing rapidly.
It is.
And we'd love to be a part of that with you. Thanks for tuning in for this episode of Sessions. I'm Blake. That's Earl. We look forward to talking with you all session long. And thanks for tuning in. Take care.